OnShape Exercise 9. Create a sketch on the front plane, N for normalize, and turn off all of the original sketch planes if it makes it easier for you. If not, you can leave them on. So we're going to start by drawing a construction line. So I'm going to choose construction and line, or L and Q. L for line, Q for construction. Hover over your origin and move upward. So this allows it to snap to the origin. I'm going to click up here, bring it straight down, click again. So this is just going to be a reference line. When you sketch this next shape, make sure you do it to the left of that origin line, or else you're going to have to do everything backwards from the way that I do it. So normally you can sketch anywhere you want, but for this one you need to make sure that you're to the left. So I'm going to draw just a simple L shape and try and make sure that you don't accidentally snap to the origin with any of these lines. So right here, if I were to click, it would be automatically constrained to be coincident with that dot. So I want to make sure that I'm above, and I line up those ends. And I did miss there, but I could redraw the line, or I can come back in and make those coincident. So I have this L shape, and if you're looking at the drawing, you might be a little confused right now because we're drawing an L shape, but the drawing is a circle. So why are we doing it this way? I'm doing it this particular way to show you how to do a revolve. You could draw this shape by extruding multiple circles, but I'm showing you specifically one tool. So this, we're going to create a circle by spinning a shape around an axis. So if you think like a wheel spins around an axis, or if I took a flag and spun it in a circle, like I would be taking a shape and spinning it through the air. But in this instance, it's going to leave a solid shape in its wake, creating that circular part. So this is the center point, and then this is the outermost edge. So everything that I'm going to do is a radius, but your drawing is in diameter. So the diameter of that outermost ring. So you have to think this is the furthest point out, and it might actually help if I go to the top view. So you can see here's my shape, and it's going to spin the entire way around, and right now I'm on that line here. So that's going to be the outermost point of my circle. So let's go back to our normal view here, and this dimension is going to be 9 inches, so it's the radius, which means it's cut in half. It's 4.5. The next line in, I'm going to dimension, D for dimension, here to the center line. This is 5 inches, so I'm going to make it 2.5 for the radius. And the last one is 4 inches, so we'll make that 2. I need a couple of heights in here. My thickness is 0.375, and my total height is 2.5. So I'm still missing a few lines here, and we're going to add in just another construction line just to make all this snap into place where we want it. So I can choose any one of these horizontal lines. It does not matter at this point in time, but you can choose any one of these horizontal lines and choose to make it coincident. So I'm going to make this line. Now let's go with the, oops, I did something wrong there. So Command Z to get out of it. I'm going to use that coincident constraint, and I'm going to make this line coincident with that one. So now, because it's locked into this XY position, that means it's locked in dimensionally. So I'm going to hit my green check mark, go to my 3D view, and next to extrude in our toolbar is a feature called revolve. So the first thing it asks me to do is select a face and sketch regions. So this is a sketch region. So I'm going to click on that. And then it asks me to select an axis. So this is going to be the point that it spins around. I'm going to show you the wrong axis to show you what it does. So if I click here, it takes that shape, loops it around that axis. If I choose the other axis, now that's starting to look like what we want. So that's why we drew in that construction line, so we had something to spin it around. So you kind of have to think a little bit ahead of where you're going to spin it whenever you do a revolve. Some shapes can only be made this way. This is a very quick way of making a sphere. You could draw a circle, put a construction line through it, and do a revolve, and you would end up with a sphere. So there are a couple other things here. There's one direction, so I can choose a specific degree of rotation of how far it goes around. Symmetric, which it's going to go a total number of degrees, but divided each direction. And then there's two directions. So I can tell it to go 30 degrees one way and then 60 degrees the next. But for ours, we're just going to use full because we want it to be that flange shape. Green check mark. So our next feature that we should add in is that pattern of bolt holes around the bottom of the flange. So we're going to choose sketch. We're going to choose that face, N for normalize. And sometimes this happens. Normalize doesn't always get what you want. So if you ever hit N for normalize and it goes wrong, force it to go the right direction and then hit N for normalize. I need some construction lines again. This is just going to give me a position so I don't have to dimension things a whole bunch of times. And it's also going to give a pattern for our, or give a path for a pattern to follow. So I'm going to use construction and circle tool. Set that diameter as 7 inches. And then I'm also going to make a line using the construction tool. And we're going to go from our center point straight up. But I did notice an issue there where this is the center point of my circle, but I missed here. So I want to make those two coincident. And then I'll go back, get my line tool. And I'm going to make sure it snaps to 90, and then I'm going to terminate it, or make sure it connects to that circle. So what that does is it gives me a point at exactly the 12 o'clock position on this 7-inch circle. It's just kind of a quick cheat to do that. And now I need to create my circle that I want to pattern. So I'll draw a circle in. It needs to be a 1/2 inch, 0.5. And my next feature is how I take this shape, this circle, and pattern it the whole way around that ring. So in the toolbar here, we have linear pattern. You can see there's a drop down, and there's circular pattern. And I'm going to select made a few mistakes there. I had to undo them. So I'm going to use my circular pattern tool, and it's going to want me to select what I want to pattern first. It doesn't really prompt you in any way, shape, or form, but what am I going to pattern? This circle. And because it has a defined axis, we've made it coincident with a circle construction line that we already created. We don't have to define anything else. If we didn't have these construction lines, we would have to define those things. So that you can see here, there's a couple bits of information that it does give us. It gives us 3 times, and then it shows us the direction that it's rotating. So we're going to first double click where it says 3x, and there are a total including the one that we already drew of 8. So I hit enter. So now it's showing me that it's going to sketch in 8 of those. The other option that we have it's flipping it back and forth on me. So the other option, if you grab and hold this arrow and start to pull it a direction, the number of degrees will pop up. And this is how many degrees of rotation do you want that full pattern to be. It defaults to a full rotation. But if you only wanted to do 90 degrees, you could tell it to do 8 holes evenly spaced over 90 degrees. So we'll remember 315. I'll just do this as a demo. 90 degrees. So it took those same 8 holes and spaced it over just 90 degrees. But I want the full rotation. So if you do nothing, you don't change that, it will automatically evenly space that over a full rotation. So that's what we want. So we're going to click the green check mark, and that creates our pattern. So I want to extrude those, and I want to remove them. And I could go in and select every single one of those holes. But there is kind of a cheat, and if it doesn't work, you can still go in and select all of those. But the cheat is if you select a sketch from the menu over here, any closed feature, so anything you drew in that sketch that is completely closed, there's no openings into space, it'll automatically select those. So if I go to my 3D view, because I have remove selected, it's going through, and I want you to get out of the habit of just allowing it to go too far. So right now you can see that it's going to extrude a total of 1 inch, but we only need 0.375. Instead of measuring that, if I just go up to next, it's just going to go all the way through. Oh, clicked on the wrong one. Trimetric. So it's going to go all the way through. And because I clicked away, it finished that extrude. But once you have everything set, you hit the green check mark. The last thing we need to do is, if you ever need to create a sketch plane on a circular item, it is kind of difficult to do. You have a few options in our plane feature, but it doesn't quite really get us the center of a circle. So if I look through here, there's really no option. So if I choose like curve point, that's not really showing me anything. So that's the only one that by name might fit, but we have to give it something to reference. And the best way I've found for circles is using this option called mate connector. Mate connectors are typically used whenever you're doing an assembly. But one of the nice features about it is you can use it to force locations. So I want this location to have its own X, Y, and Z. So you can see our cube has X, Y, and Z. If I go from my origin, that is where X would be this way, Y would be this way, and Z would be up and down. So I want to force another X, Y, and Z in a certain location. So I want to hover over the ring of this circle, and it's automatically going to put one of those in the center. The issue is the X, Y, and Z of this origin has its own planes, and we typically hide those whenever we start our sketch. So, and I'm fully well aware that if you turn on the front plane, it's in the center of that circle. But I'm showing you how you would do this on a circle if you didn't have that. So we need to make sure that the flat, or this little disc in the center here, is facing the direction we want that plane that we're going to create to be. And you can do a mate connector for just about anything. You can put one in the center of this circle or whatever you want. So it's a very useful tool, and we're kind of underutilizing it here. So we want to move it, and we have a couple options. We can rotate around the X, the Y, or the Z. And if you look at your view, your thing here, we got blue, green, and red. And we have blue, green, and red for Z, Y, and X. So I want to rotate this on the red one, which is X. So I'm going to choose rotate about the X axis, and I'm going to choose 90 degrees. So you can see it flipped it, which is exactly what I wanted. And I'm going to click the green check mark. Now I have a location. See how when I hover over that disk, now it highlights. So when I choose my plane feature, I can select that disk and it creates a plane. Now be careful because it offsets at 1 inch. We want to make sure that we change that to 0. So now I've created a plane in the center. And now I have a place to put my sketch. So I'm going to do my sketch just like we did in the last drawing. Create a sketch on that plane. Right click on the plane and do a section view. This just gets rid of extra stuff that we don't need. We need to use the use feature, and we want the outside of this. So we actually have to go into our 3D view and select the outside of that. And what that's going to do is place that into our sketch plane. So we'll go back to flat. And now we can create our circles. So try not to snap to the midpoint. We want to actually dimension in our height. So we're going to create a circle. It has a radius of 0.25, so it has a diameter of 0.5. Then we can put another one on this side, 0.5. And diameter or dimension, center point to the bottom is 1.5. And the same thing for this one. We can finish that sketch, and we're going to do an extrude. We're going to choose symmetric. We'll choose that sketch. It's going to choose the only closed shapes that we have, and we're going to select remove, and we're going to go through all. So right now we have the section view turned on. If we turn that off, you can see it went both ways through the part. So this is sometimes used for alignment in flanges or when you're machining them. It can also be used as a positive lock for things that snap together. So it's a traditional feature. We just kind of went a different way to achieve it. So this completes the sketch. I would turn off all of your extra planes and connectors that are in the way. Take a screenshot of this view and submit to Canvas for a grade.